Hey, welcome back. This is Defender Fabrication. My name's Scott, and I want to give you a couple tips today. What we've been doing is we've got a big job. It's taken me probably a month to work through all these, but we're building these hose racks. This is a wall-mounted piece. We do 8 of these a week for 4 weeks, and then we've also got these uprights, the pedestal mount. It's kind of the same head with a enlarged back on it, and just mounted on a stem. So what I want to show you is bending this rod. What I got when I did this job was the guy brought me these samples of what they already had. Right? Now this doesn't look too bad. I mean, obviously it's been used and it's rusty and all that. But this wall-mounted unit, you can see, I think, that this upper piece, they didn't really do a good job rolling that. And I don't know, it just kind of looks like garbage to me. I think what I'm pulling off looks a little better. So let me show you how I started out building these. And listen, stay tuned. I've got an extra tip on how I put these bends in these corners, which, you know, just a different tool that I use that maybe you haven't seen before. And after that, I'm going to give you another little bonus tip as well. So stay tuned all the way to the end of the video. See you then. So here's a look at what I started to roll that with. You notice that on both ends of this is a sheet metal roller. It's rated for something small like 16, 18 gauge, something of that nature. I don't know, it's 32, 36 inches long. But it's got these grooves on the rollers on the end. And when I bid this job, I thought this was going to be the ticket. This is how I'm going to roll that and make that 3/8 bar nice and smooth. And I did the majority of the first 25% of this job with this thing, but the problem is I had it clamped down to a bench, and I bought this thing a long time ago, and it just never really worked out for anything. It still hasn't worked out, but I tried to clamp it to a bench, but it took so much force to rotate this that the bench was moving. So then I had to bolt it to the chassis jig, and even then cranking it was just killing my shoulder. And I don't know if you realize it or not, but I'm an old man, and or at least knocking on the door of old man status, and it just wasn't working out for me, so I had to figure out something else. So let's go take a look at how I'm doing it now. All right, so between that rolling tool and this, there were a couple of quick iterations. I first took a die off of my tubing bender and tried to bend around it. The radius was too tight, so I then took a trash can. I've got a little bin here for my scrap metal, and bent it around it. It was still a little bit tight, and so then I got thinking about some plywood that I had. Tore a shelf apart and had this 3/4 plywood that's been sitting in the other building for a while, and I thought, well, man, I wonder if I cut a radius. So a couple iterations later, different radiuses that I tried, you'll notice that there's actually a fixture over there for the smaller ones, but I'm going to show you how to bend one of the bigger ones. What it turns out, of course, this radius is tighter than what you want to bend because of spring back. You're going to have you have to bend it a little tighter than what you really want. So the way it turns out is 0.71 is the radius that you need to bend to get the radius you want. So if you want a 20-inch radius, or let's make this easy, if you want a 10-inch radius, you're going to have to bend to 7.1 inches to spring back to 10. Now this is mild steel. I'm sure with something like chromoly or some of the high tensile strength that that factor is going to change, so you may have to experiment just like I did. Now what I did here is I cut a slot because the hose racks have a straight section on the sides that gets bent at 90 degrees, and so I don't want to put a radius on that. I just want to put a radius on that center section. So what we did was I created that straight section is the same as from here to here. And now what we'll do to make the bending easier, and I got another little tool I'm going to show you before this is over with, is I'll just go ahead and I'll mark where that straight section is on both ends. Right? Now, hopefully you can see See that blue mark? I'm using, by the way, I don't get paid to these people, but Milwaukee Inkzalls. This stuff's got a little bit of oil on it, and I don't want to clean it off at this stage of the game. So these will actually write on that where a regular Sharpie will not. So anyway, so I got that mark, and simply all you got to do, bottom this out in that slot, and then bend it on around. And I'm going to bend it all the way until I've got this line that I put on there touching. And there you go. That's the radius. At least it's close enough that when I weld these things together, I do have to pull this in a little bit to get it to line up with the spokes on that hose rack. So this is so much easier than cranking the handle on that set of rolls. So anyway, hopefully this keeps somebody from having to go through what I did and damn near tearing my shoulder up to get to this point. But let me show you another tool as a bonus on how I bend these corners. There's a lot of ways to do this, but I got a neat little tool that you probably don't know about unless you're a exhaust guy. Let's go take a look at it. So what I've got is made by Huth Ben Pearson, who makes exhaust tubing benders, and this is something they sell, I believe, just to do like brackets and hangers and things of that nature. So let me set up here and we'll show you just how easy this is to knock a couple 90s in this thing. Now I do all this by eye, and you know I got 79 of these hose racks to build, with 47 of them having a piece of this 3/8 bar on the front and the back, so I know just about where to bend this. And you know, when I weld it up, I can always make a little tweak with a clamp or something of that nature. So it's just that quick. And I mean, that's what this thing's for, you know, these exhaust guys, you know, and this thing is just in a vise. I mean, you know, it's just a block like this, and you throw it in your vise. Okay, last tip. Thanks for sticking around. What I've got this Hitachi grinder that I use. It's got an automatic kick out feature. If it gets bound up or something, it kicks off. Even though the switch stays on, I don't know how it does it. I don't know if it detects a like a sudden change in movement, whether there's like an accelerometer in it or something like that, or how it does it. But anyway, I like to use it with these wire brushes because it's easy to get them bound up. So anyway, what I did was I found a screw the same size as the handle. Now I'm sure that this violates 4 ton of manufacturer recommended guidelines. But what I do, because I clean a lot of parts off the plasma cutter and hold on to a grinder, and that's the other reason why I like this Hitachi grinder. Now I bought this, I don't know, it was a fraction of what they were new. This thing was over 100 bucks. I'm thinking maybe like $140, $150 for this grinder, and I'm too cheap to pay that much for a grinder. But I would have to think twice about buying another one, because this thing, there's no brushes in it, and it is so slim, it's easy to hold on to. You know, a regular grinder, if you're trying to work it one-handed, which with small parts, and I'll give you an idea, these are some of the braces for the those hose racks. That bottom stem gets 4 of these braces between the stem and the brace. And to clean these, if you're working on the bench and you're holding a grinder with one hand, you're trying to hold these. Now I know you can clamp it and all that, but you know, if the dross doesn't come off too terribly bad, that's a lot of work to go through to keep clamping, unclamping, and all that. So anyway, on small parts like this, what I found, I bolt this to the workbench, start the grinder, and then I can just use it like almost like a bench grinder. Now, I know you can get a bench grinder too. I'm just showing you this. If you have a grinder, maybe you're a guy just starting out, you don't have 50 grinders, you don't have, you know, a pedestal grinder, or maybe the pedestal grinder is set up for something else, whatever. Anyway, if you can use it, I hope it helps. If you can't, maybe you can show somebody else someday or whatever. Anyway, thanks for watching. I appreciate a thumbs up. If you like this kind of content, I try to do this as often as I can. Hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks.